WCHS, the Pam Dudley Center, Emergency Preparedness Planning. In this course, we will identify community resources, planning and response team members, situational planning and response for earthquake, extreme temperatures, fire, flooding, hazardous material, inclement weather, intruder or terroristic threatening, and severe weather. We'll also look at the maintenance of the plan and supplies and records. It has been said that people don't plan to fail, they simply fail to plan. At WCHS and the Pam Dudley Center, we believe that a comprehensive emergency preparedness plan is an integral part of providing quality support to the individuals we serve. The following plan was developed by a team of individuals. Those individuals include representatives from WCHS staff and administration, community leaders, and expert in disaster preparedness, as well as supported individuals. Community resources. The community emergency shelter that we are requested to use by our local disaster preparedness team in Washington County is the Great Minds Health Center. It is located in Potosi. The phone number is 438-9355. It is located at number 1 Southtown Drive. The emergency cooling center for our area is the Sayre Senior Center in Potosi. The phone number is 438-5962, and it is located at 109 Lawrence Street. KTJJ FM Radio 98.5 should be used as a primary informational source in cases of major disaster. Information would be available to be passed through them to the local community about displaced individuals. Contact information for non-emergency contact with the local dispatch for police, fire, and ambulance is 438-5468. For emergency assistance, call 911. Let's take a look at the planning team members. Team members in any emergency part or all of this team as necessary for the specific situation will discuss options, make decisions, and pass that information on to the appropriate individuals. The planning and response team members include the director, assistant director, RN, and all supervisor. The decision-making chain is the director, assistant director, RN, appropriate supervisor or house manager, and WCHS board members. Please take note, any employee who becomes aware of a potentially threatening or dangerous situation should contact the appropriate member of the planning and response team. For example, if you're working at one of the ISL locations and become aware of threatening weather but haven't heard from the director or the DPM about the conditions, you should call the director to inform him or her. Don't assume he or she knows. Earthquake, Phase 1. A description of a Phase 1 earthquake is a minor quake with no known injuries or damage. The action you should take as planning and response team should communicate with each other. They should check for damage to buildings. They should check with staff to be sure all individuals in supported settings are safe. And they should report the information to the director or designee. Earthquake, Phase 2. The description of this type of earthquake is that it is an earthquake with damage. If injuries exist, take immediate measures necessary. This could range from first aid to calling 911. Call the agency RN to inform this person of any injuries. The planning and response team should communicate with each other. They should do an assessment of all buildings, agency or supported residential, to determine the safety of remaining at the location. Professional opinion should be sought from fire and rescue personnel unless the assessment results in a clear determination that no danger exists. If it's safe to remain, appropriate family members should be contacted to inform them of the situation. Earthquake with Phase 3. Phase 3 is an earthquake with damage resulting in an unsafe setting or significant injuries. Contact 911 if significant injuries or help is needed with evacuation of the building. Contact the director or person in line with the decision-making chain on page 6 of the Emergency Preparedness book. As soon as is safely possible, move individuals into a safe setting. This may be the emergency shelter or some other determined location. Communicate with those in charge to determine the course of action. Contact Rolla Regional Office to inform them of the move of supported individuals. Phase 4 earthquake is an earthquake with catastrophic results. Call 911 if possible and follow directions of emergency personnel. Contact the director or designee if possible. If it is possible to move or have others moved but communication methods are down, go to the community emergency shelter. Listen to KTJJ for information and contact them with information as is available. The worse the event, the more necessary it becomes to be able to make quality, life-saving individual decisions. Realize that in some circumstances, things could be so bad that communication with others is sparse or non-existent. Always protect life first. Then, to the best of your ability, try to communicate necessary information to those in charge. Extreme temperatures. Heat-related illnesses can have a very quick onset. This information is given to outline protocols for decision-making during extreme heat. Extreme cold can also present very real risk and are considered here as well. Phase 1. If the temperature exceeds 95 degrees or is expected to be below 25 degrees, the planning and response teams should be in communication about all planned activities and outings involving supported individuals. Things to be considered include but are not limited to the distance required of travel, the environment of planned activity, the time of day of the activity, and the forecasted temperature for that time. Decisions will be made and as much as advance notice given as possible for any cancellations or changes in plans. Phase 2. If the temperature exceeds 100 or is below 20 degrees, no outings will be supported by WCHS without the expressed overriding permission of the Executive Director. Transportation would only be provided for pickup and delivery of day program or employment, and this determination should be made as much as possible and as soon as possible, giving as much advance notice as is possible. Phase 3. Phase 3 is defined when extreme heat or cold exists and electrical outings or equipment malfunction make it impossible to properly cool or heat a location. The planning and response team will discuss available options. Possible solutions could be moving to the emergency shelter, the cooling center, or renting hotel rooms, etc. If sheltering in place is necessary, extreme care should be taken when using backup heating sources. Staff should never jeopardize the safety of individuals in support by using an unapproved or dangerous method of heating a home or building. If individuals are moved to another location, the director of WCHS and Raleigh Regional Office must be contacted. In all outings, care should be taken to consider the conditions. Sunscreen and appropriate clothing for the conditions should be considered, and encouragement and support in using them should be provided to the individuals we serve. Remember that many medications or medical conditions may make someone more susceptible to heat-related illness. If you see any of the signs listed in this training, contact the agency RN or medical professional immediately. Be familiar with heat cramps. Heat cramps are muscle pains and spasms due to heavy exertion. Although heat cramps are the least severe, they are often the first signal that the body is having trouble with the heat. Heat exhaustion typically occurs when people exercise heavily or work in a hot, humid place where body fluids are lost through heavy sweating. Blood flow to the skin increases, causing blood flow to decrease to the vital organs. This results in a form of mild shock. If not treated, the victim's condition will worsen. Body temperature will keep rising, and the victim may suffer a heat stroke. Heat stroke is a life-threatening condition. The victim's temperature control system, which produces sweating to cool the body, stops working. The body temperature can rise so high that brain damage and death may result if the body is not cooled quickly. Sunstroke is another term for heat stroke. Fire which occurs in a building. Fire drills are conducted monthly in residential and dayhab settings. Smoke detectors are checked monthly. Batteries in smoke detectors are changed twice a year at the time change, unless needed more frequently. In all fires, all individuals should immediately evacuate the building, and 911 should be called. The director must be contacted. If he or she is unavailable, use the decision-making chain on page 6. Raleigh Regional Office will be contacted immediately, as soon as is possible after emergency calls to 911 and the director are made. The planning and response team will work with fire officials to determine if the building is safe to inhabit. If not, the team will work to find suitable locations for everyone until more permanent arrangements can be made. Fire in a vehicle. The National Fire Protection Association, or the NFPA, says 33 car fires are reported every hour in the United States, and 18% of all reported fires occur on a road or highway and involve a motor vehicle. Signal and move immediately to the right shoulder or right lane. Get the vehicle stopped and shut off the engine while getting yourself and all passengers out of the vehicle. Get as far away from the vehicle as you can, at least 150 feet, but make sure that the area you move to is safe and secure. Dial 911 so the dispatcher can notify the fire department. Contact the director. If he or she is unavailable, refer to the decision-making chain on page 6 of the Emergency Preparedness Manual. Raleigh Regional Office will be contacted immediately as soon as is possible after emergency calls to 911 and the director are made. Alternate transportation will be arranged for the transportation of individuals. Now let's examine the danger of flooding. According to FloodSafety.com, there are over 200 flash flood related deaths in the United States every year. Missouri ranks 7th in the nation in insurance claims related to flooding and or flash flooding. Washington County has many streams, creeks, and rivers that flood quickly, involving bridges and roadways. If flooding occurs in a building, although none of the locations where residential supports are provided by WCHS are likely to flood, communication is key in any emergency. If waters are rising toward the dwelling of supported individuals, the planning and response team should be contacted immediately. The fire department may be contacted by this team to determine a course of action. Individuals will be evacuated if there is a danger of flooding in their home. If you are in a vehicle and you encounter flooding, remember this. Vehicles owned and driven by WCHS and WCSB 40 should never cross a flooded roadway. If you encounter a flooded roadway, contact the director or person in the decision-making chain located on page 6 of the Emergency Preparedness Manual. You'll be given the option of taking another route if one is available. Families of individuals who live in their natural home, who also live in areas where flooding is common, will sometimes have safe alternatives to crossing the water. They may wish to cross the water and pick up their loved one. If no other safe option is available, the director or designee will determine a course of action that may include providing lodging for an individual until water recedes. Hazardous material. This section on hazardous material is intended to give direction to staff concerning the proper response to an environmental emergency such as hazardous material spill, toxic fumes, gas leaks, etc. Noxious fumes. An odor from inside the house or building. If the odor is coming from in the house or building, it may be natural gas or propane leak, evacuate the building immediately. Contact 911 and ask for directions. The director should be notified. If not available, contact the next person on the decision-making chain located on page 6 of the Emergency Preparedness Manual. If the odor is from outside the building or information is received that an environmental emergency exists in the area, contact 911 and follow the instructions received from the emergency personnel. The director should also be notified in this situation or the person identified in the decision-making chain. If evacuation is needed and the home or building is not safe to inhabit, the planning and response team will discuss options for temporary lodging and or the proper response to the situation. If you are certain the odor is coming from outside or have been alerted to environmental emergency in the area, you should do the following while waiting for assistance from emergency personnel. It is possible that emergency responders would be unable to get to a home or a building in a timely manner. Make sure that all windows and doors are closed. Turn off the air conditioner and heater. Take damp towels and place them around the edges of windows and doors. Use damp clothes to breathe through. Inclement weather. Inclement weather is defined in this plan as weather related to hazardous condition caused by winter precipitation. This is separate from severe weather, which relates to stormy conditions. Phase 1 of inclement weather. Inclement weather is predicted. The planning and response team will communicate to plan for the potential upcoming weather event. Lead staff in residential settings will evaluate the availability of necessary items in the home and purchase additional items if needed. This includes but is not limited to food and paper supplies. The predicted severity of the weather should be taken into consideration. If a large snowfall or ice event is predicted, larger than usual amounts may need to be purchased. Salt or ice melt should be on hand for the treatment of driveway and sidewalks around the home. The planning and response team is responsible for purchasing any needed supplies for treatment of surfaces around the agency buildings. No outings should be conducted during times of inclement weather. No agency vehicles will be in use if the agency is closed unless authorized by the director. Phase 2. Inclement weather is present and conditions are hazardous. No non-emergency outings involving supported individuals will be conducted. Non-emergency doctor visits will be rescheduled if possible. Staff may be required to work beyond their scheduled shift. Additional staff, even from other departments, may be required to report to work. Under most circumstances, those in residential supports will shelter in place. If that is unsafe, Phase 3. The closure of the agency will be determined by the director or designee. Phase 3. Extraordinary inclement weather resulting in extended electrical outing or residential setting for supported individual becomes unsafe. Planning and response team will be in communication to consider possible solutions. If a community emergency shelter is available, all reasonable attempts will be made to move to that shelter. If it is not available, other solutions will be considered, including but not limited to individuals at one residence who may have electricity and a safe environment, providing temporary lodging for those who do not. Supported individuals at the location of the gathering must be asked for their permission to do this. The rental of hotel rooms would possibly be an option. If so, staffing ratios must be kept in compliance with regular service. If electricity and safe environment exist at the agency building, beds could be made available for the facility to serve as a temporary lodging option. If an inclement weather event results in Phase 3 situation, care must be taken in the transporting of individuals to a new location. The planning and response team will work together and find safe avenues for this transportation. Intruder or terroristic threatening. If an intruder or potential intruder poses a risk and/or threats are made against individuals or the agency as a whole, the following protocol should be followed. Phase 1 of an intruder or terroristic threatening situation is when a threat is perceived. This could be something like an escapee from the local jail or prison is known to be in the area, or someone is acting in an aggressive or threatening manner. In this situation, you would contact law enforcement through the non-emergency number of 438-5468 and inform them of the situation and ask for direction. Be sure the director of WCHS is aware of the situation. If he or she is not available, follow the decision-making chain on page 6 of the Emergency Preparedness Manual. Lock all doors and windows. Control the flow of traffic in and out of the building. Phase 2. A threat is present or imminent. Examples could be a bomb threat, a disgruntled individual is on site and is making threats of harm, etc. Call 911 and ask for police assistance. Lock all doors and windows. Contact the director of WCHS. If he or she is unavailable, contact the next person on the decision-making chain. In case of an external threat, do not allow anyone to leave or enter until law enforcement has arrived. In case of a bomb threat, immediately evacuate the building and move to a safe alternative location. No one should re-enter the building in the case of a bomb threat until law enforcement has determined it is safe to do so. If a pattern of false bomb threats were to occur, follow the instructions of law enforcement as to the appropriate action. Phase 3. A hostile intruder is in the building and is causing harm or taking hostages. Lock yourself and supported individuals in the room you are in at the time of the threatening activity if you cannot safely exit the building. If you can safely exit the building, leave and go to a safe distance away and stay put until the emergency is clearly over. Call the director or the person in chain of command to inform someone of your location after 911 has been called and you are safe. If communication is available, call 911. Don't stay in the open hallway. Do not sound the fire alarm. A fire alarm would signal the occupants in the rooms to evacuate the building and thus place them in potential harm as they attempt to exit. Barricade yourself in a room with furniture or anything you can push against the door. Lock the window and close the blinds or curtains. Stay away from windows. Turn all lights and audio equipment off. Try to stay calm and be as quiet as possible. And lastly, severe weather. Severe weather, for the purpose of this plan, is intended to mean any stormy conditions that could possibly lead to damage by tornado, high winds, hail, or etc. Phase 1. A storm or tornado watch has been issued or a high risk for severe weather has been predicted for our area. Planning and response teams should communicate about the conditions and any reports and predictions. The planning team should be sure someone is watching closely for changing weather conditions. Each planning and response team member should contact those in their contact list about the conditions and remind them to be aware of the potential threat. Outings may still be scheduled, but care should be taken to have plans in place for changing conditions. Outings may need to be adjusted so that less response time would be needed. For example, if an outing was planned for St. Louis and/or it was at a location where contacting staff would be difficult, this outing would need to be changed or canceled. However, if the outing planned was local and staff is aware of the conditions and is prepared to make needed adjustments, it may be able to be continued. Severe Weather Phase 2. A warning has been issued. Planning and response teams should contact appropriate staff and instruct them on the situation. All emergency response actions should begin as is practiced in the tornado drills. Planning and response team will make decisions on sheltering in place or moving to a safer location. Supported individuals would only be moved to an alternative location during a storm if the following criteria are met. A location is determined in advance to be a better option than sheltering in place. To the best of their ability, members of the planning team and resource team have determined that a safe window of time exists to move individuals from their home to the other location, and there is a high likelihood that a tornado is heading in the direction of the location where supported individuals are currently residing. Severe Weather Phase 3. Severe weather has resulted in damage and/or injury. Call 911 if necessary and/or perform first aid. Contact the director of WCHS. If he or she is unavailable, contact the next person on the decision-making chain. Evacuate the location if possible. Unless communication is impossible, seek direction from the director, planning, and response team. Take care in determining the course of action. It may be necessary to evacuate, but you should not evacuate into a situation that is still dangerous. Raleigh Regional Office will be contacted to inform them of the current situation. Phase 4. A disaster has occurred at a catastrophic level requiring extraordinary measures of response. Call 911 if possible. Call the director if possible. Remember that texting will sometimes work when phones will not connect for voice conversations. The planning and response team will notify all needed employees. This could vary from situation to situation. If no contact can be made with others, all reasonable attempts should be made to get individuals to the local emergency shelter for Washington County. In residential supports, this should only be done if damage or danger prevents you from staying at the original location and/or returning safely to the home if away from home when the disaster strikes. Great Minds Health Clinic is the emergency shelter for Washington County. The phone number there is 438-9355. The planning and response team will contact all staff and supported individuals to assess needs for assistance. The emergency texting system in use currently for inclement weather notifications will be used for this purpose if possible. The planning and response team will contact KTJJ FM radio 98.5 to have information broadcast if all regular communication by phone and computer is unavailable. Maintenance of the plan. This plan is only worthwhile if it is practiced and kept current. It shall be the duty of the Director of WCHS to review this plan annually at the time of submitting the annual budget to the Board of WCHS. At any point in the year, if staff believes the plan needs adjustment, those suggestions should be put into writing and given to the Director. Record protection. The records of individuals receiving support can be crucial to them obtaining quality medical care and treatment during and following a disaster. Therefore, WCHS has begun the practice of keeping an electronic copy of all vital information from these records. These records are scanned and saved electronically to a flash drive, and it is kept in a water and fireproof safe at WCHS's facility. Supplies. An emergency supply kit should be kept in the home of each person receiving residential supports from WCHS. This kit should contain first aid supplies, checked semi-annually at time change to ensure they are kept up to date and are not expired. If an item is due to expire within the next 6 months, a new item shall be purchased and the old removed from the kit, and used if possible and necessary before the expiration. Non-perishable food supply sufficient for each person living there and an additional staff member. This should be sufficient for a 3-day supply. Water in the amount of 3 gallons per person living there and an additional staff person. A flashlight for each person. These may be kept in the home at a separate location from the kit. However, during severe weather, they should be obtained and kept with the individuals there. A whistle, dust mask, moist toilettes. Also, in each ISL and the agency building, a NOAA or NOAA radio, weather radio, will be located. Extra batteries for these radios will be kept in the emergency kits in the ISLs.